Buenos dias, clase. We are moving on to chapter 5, and you need to listen to the vocabulary CD over chapter 5 and look on with your book, your textbook, on pages 204 and 205. You also need to write down all the vocabulary in Spanish and English on these two pages, 204 and 205, 204 y 205. And remember that the most important thing, when I tell you to do something, I'll explain an activity, make sure, and I just tell you on the recorder, on the video, because I want to explain how to do it. But look at what I write down. That's what actually do, because sometimes I change my mind. I find that an activity might be too difficult or something. So make sure that you see what I've written down. And but go ahead, you need to listen to this video. We're talking about indirect object pronouns today. Boo, not fun. We're going to start on page 206 of the textbook. So you need to be following with me on the textbook, or else this isn't going to make any sense at all. First of all, they have an illustrated grammar, gramática ilustrada, which I'll go over in a minute. But first you go to the middle of the page, where it says indirect object pronouns. Los pronombres de complemento indirecto are used with verbs of informing which tell to whom something is said, told, explained, reported, asked, answered, and so on. Always cross out the one for vosotros. It says Spain on the right-hand column, because here's a little column of the indirect object pronouns. Me is to me. Te is to you. Le could be all sorts of things. The formal you, usted, le, to you, or to him or to her. Nos, to us. And then les is to plural you, to y'all, you plural, or to them. But the os, cross that out. So for example, let's look at the examples in the blue right under that. ¿Qué les explica la profesora Martínez? What does the Professor Martínez explain to you guys, to y'all? Lace. They use lace. Otherwise, if it was just you, the to form, it would be ¿Qué te explica? All right. Nos explica el significado de las palabras nuevas. She explains the meaning of new words to us. Amanda ya no me habla. Amanda does not speak to me anymore. Poor Ernestito, his mother always says no to him. Pobre Ernestito, su mamá siempre le dice que no. Le dice que no. And then look at B. Just like reflexive pronouns, indirect object pronouns are placed before the main verb or attached to infinitives. They can be attached right onto an infinitive. Remember an infinitive is, in English, to love, to walk, to. It's to in front of a verb. But in Spanish, it's going to end in AR, ER, or IR, not be conjugated out. All right. For example, what is your father going to say to you? ¿Qué te va a decir tu papá? And then he can say, I don't know what he's going to say to me. No sé qué va a decirme. Or he could say, no sé qué me va a decir. So it has to go in front of a conjugated verb or attached right on to, if there are two verbs in the sentence. Always it seems like one is conjugated and the other one's in its infinitive form. Just like we learned those, I'm going to do this. Voy a la playa, or no, voy a ir a la playa. Voy a ir al cine. Voy a ir de compras. Things like that. You would, well, that wouldn't, you're not going to be using an indirect object pronoun on those. Look at this. Well, forget this part in the middle where it says Esteban is reading the answer to us. We're going to be learning that later. That's called the gerund form. Okay, look at C. When using lay or lace, it's very common to use a phrase with to specify the person or thing involved, because lay and lace could mean all sorts of things. It can mean to him, to her, Lace could mean to them or to y'all. You just never know who you're talking about. So, to whom is Clara writing the letter? We wouldn't say that. We'd say, who's Clara writing the letter to? Because we speak poor grammar. ¿A quién le escribe Clara la carta? She's writing the letter to her friend Norman. Le escribe la carta a su amiga Norma. Norma, not Norman, where I went to school. I always tell my boss ahead of time I'm not going to go to work. Yo siempre le aviso a mi jefe que con tiempo si no voy a ir a trabajo. Sorry, I can't talk this morning. All right, now on the bottom of 207, we're going to put the correct indirect object pronoun in the blanks. You're going to use me, te, le, nos, or lace, and you have to kind of look and see. For example, number 1, Esteban says, something contesto a mis compañeros. So he's saying, I'm answering them. I'm answering my friends. So I'm answering those people, them. And if you look at to them over in your little box over here, it's going to be les. Les contesto a mis compañeros. Les contesto a mis compañeros. Let's do one more. La profesora Martínez blank explica la lección a los estudiantes. So she's explaining the lesson to who? To them. Once again, it's to them. So it is lace. Again, lace. You're going to do the rest of these. Exercise 1. You're going to do exercise 2. It's the same thing. Look at the top of 208. You're going to just put me, te, le, nos, or lace. It says, hola, Mónica. No blank dices buenas tardes. Hi, Mónica. Aren't you going to tell me good afternoon? No me dices buenas tardes. Aren't you going to tell me good afternoon? All right, so that's the first one. You're going to do the rest of those. So you'll do those activities. So you're doing vocabulary. You're doing these two. Oh, let's move on to 186. There are some more examples. 186, 186. And the first one says, Alberto les habla a sus compañeros. This will help you also with your activities. Alberto talks to them, to his companions. Mónica no le pone atención a la profesora. Mónica is not paying attention to the professor. You know what? I have this way down. I wonder if that's going to make any difference. I hope not. I had that way low. So Mónica is not paying attention to her, to the professor. They put both in there. See, we don't do that. We use them to replace the noun, but they put both in. They put to her, to the professor. La profesora nos dice buenos días. The professor tells us good morning. Next, la profesora nos hace preguntas. The professor asks us questions. Le contestamos a la profesora. We answer her. We answer. The le is for her. We answer the profesora. We answer her. Nora le lee las ventanas cutulados a Esteban. Okay, that's the thing in the book that we don't ever do. Nora reads the cultural windows to him, to Esteban, to him. Carmen le hace una pregunta a la profesora Martínez. Carmen asks her, Professor Martínez, a question. La profesora le explica la gramática a Carmen. The professor explains to her, to Carmen, the grammar. Okay. Now we're not doing. I thought these were hard. These looked hard. Activity 1 and 2. I guess 2 would be pretty easy. You're just telling me. You're putting in order the things that you like a lot. Number 1 being the first. Like, ooh, this is my favorite thing. I'd love to do. I'd love to take tests. Tomar exámenes. So yeah, do activity 2. Do activity 2, because you could just. But try to read them. Try. Okay? Try to read them. Try to understand them. Okay, but another thing that you really need to know and do is the workbook. We're doing the workbook. Parker, the mail's here, I think. Chapter 5 at the top of page 117. I mean, not the top, but the whole page. Page 117 in your workbook. More Metele nos lees. They have an example there. The example is there. But let's look at number 1 because I'm running out of time. Luis y yo tenemos una buena amiga en el banco. Luis and I have a good friend in the bank, at the bank. Ella blank explica cuando tenemos problemas. Nosotros siempre blank decimos gracias. So she explains to us. So the first one's going to be nos explica. How do I know that? Well, because they're saying, hey, we have a friend at the bank. She explains when we have she explains things to us when we have problems. You just have to look at it in context. We always, nosotros siempre, we always tell her thanks. Nosotros siempre le decimos gracias. So the first one's going to be nos, and the next one's going to be le. So you're going to do that one, and then there are 5 of those because they continue on to the next page. And then the last thing you're going to do is page 118b, which is just verbs, regular present tense verbs that you're going to conjugate and plug into the sentences because it's just good practice. You need to always practice on the verbs. Number 2 says, Cuando yo no blank algo, el profesor me blank. When I don't understand something, the professor explains it to me. That's probably what it is. Cuando yo no comprendo, yo comprendo, because these are present tense regular verbs. Algo, when I don't understand something, the professor me explica. He explains it to me. Explica, third person singular. That might be hard, but it's good. It's good for you. All right, so that's all the activities, and buena suerte, good luck, and I'll talk to you later. Adios.